Chapter 8. Revenant King Mundes. The ruins of the ancient temple loomed ahead, its once proud stone walls now fractured and overtaken by frost. A haunting silence blanketed the air, disturbed only by the crunch of boots against frozen rubble. Caleb, Will, and Terence pressed forward, each breath visible in the deathly chill. Koga walked beside them, her golden eyes scanning every shadow.
"This place is wrong," Will muttered, his hand on his sword hilt. "Feels like the walls are watching us."
Koga nodded. They very well might be. These ruins were once a sanctuary. Now they serve as a tomb.
The weight of her words settled over them as they stepped deeper inside. Towering pillars, cracked and worn with age, stretched toward the darkened sky. Strange markings glowed faintly along the walls, their runes shifting like whispers in the stone.
Caleb exhaled sharply, adjusting his grip on his weapon. "Let's just find the damn flower and get out of here."
Then, boom! The temple shuddered. A low, guttural growl rumbled from deep within the ruins, shaking the very foundations. The cold in the air intensified tenfold, making the warrior's breath freeze instantly.
Koga's face darkened. It knows we're here.
Before any of them could respond, the shadows themselves began to twist and coil. A foul energy surged through the temple, and from the darkness of the grand hall, something emerged. A figure, taller than any man, clad in ancient obsidian armor, stepped into view. His helm, adorned with the twisted visage of a skull, leaked an eerie blue mist, his eyes burning with accursed light. A massive greatsword, chipped and stained with age-old blood, rested against his shoulder.
Koga tensed. Revenant King Mundes.
The very air around them weighed heavier, like the presence of death itself had taken shape.
Caleb tightened his grip, his pulse pounding in his ears. "Tell me this thing isn't worse than the last one."
Koga's expression was grim. This thing commanded the last one.
Mundes took another step forward, his voice a grating echo that rattled their bones.
"You trespass upon sacred ground, yet your souls burn brighter than the mortals I have slain."
Will scoffed. "Yeah? That's supposed to scare us."
The Revenant King raised his greatsword and pointed it at them.
"No, it is a warning."
Then he moved, faster than they could react. Caleb barely had time to raise his blade before Mundes' greatsword slammed down with the force of an avalanche. The sheer impact shattered the ground beneath them, sending shockwaves rippling through the temple. Caleb was blown backward, crashing through a broken pillar. Will and Terence dodged to the sides, barely avoiding the brutal strike.
"Shit!" Terence cursed. "He's fast for something that big."
Koga darted forward, her own blade flashing in the dim light. She clashed with Mundes in a blinding exchange of steel, sparks flying as their weapons collided.
"You are strong, warrior," Mundes rumbled, his strikes relentless. "But you are not enough."
He suddenly swung low, forcing Koga to leap back. Before Koga could react, Mundes' gauntleted fist crashed into her chest, sending her sprawling.
Caleb wiped the blood from his lips and forced himself to his feet. "All right. Screw this."
He summoned another glacier lance, the icy spear forming in his palm. With a roar, he hurled it straight for Mundes' chest. The Revenant King turned his head slightly. Then he caught the lance mid-air. The ice froze along his fingers, but then cracked and shattered as he clenched his hand, completely unfazed.
Caleb's stomach dropped. "Oh, come on."
Mundes' eyes flared, He suddenly threw the shattered ice back at them in a devastating wave of freezing energy.
Will reacted first, slamming his shield into the ground. Everyone behind me!
The ice crashed against the barrier he created, but it held. Barely. Will gritted his teeth, his arms straining as cracks formed along his shield from the impact.
Terrence growled, "We're getting nowhere like this."
Koga wiped blood from her mouth. No choice. We must attack together. Overwhelm him before he can retaliate.
Caleb exhaled sharply, gripping his sword. Then let's do it.
The three warriors charged. Caleb darted left, glacier lance forming in his hands once more. Will took the front, shield raised, drawing Mundes' focus. Terrence veered right, his axe crackling with flame as he prepared to strike. Koga vanished in a blur, reappearing behind the Revenant King in an instant.
Now!
Caleb hurled his glacier lance. At the same moment, Terrence swung downward with all his strength. Crack! The ice spear struck Mundes' shoulder, sending a shockwave of frost through his armor. At the same time, Terrence's axe slammed into his leg, molten fire melting into his cursed steel. Mundes staggered. Koga took her chance. In a flash of movement, she sliced a deep gash across Mundes' back, dark mist pouring from the wound. The Revenant King let out a low, furious growl.
Impressive, but still not enough.
His aura suddenly exploded outward, blasting them all back with a pulse of sheer dark energy.
Caleb coughed, forcing himself up. Damn it, he's still standing.
Will groaned. Tell me we have a plan B.
Koga's eyes flickered with realization. Perhaps we do.
Caleb glanced at her, breathless. What?
Koga's gaze locked onto Caleb's hand, where his sigil still glowed faintly.
You unlocked one power today. What if there's more?
Caleb blinked, then glanced at the sigil. Something stirred, something waiting to be awakened. The Revenant King raised his sword once more, stepping toward them.
You will break before me.
Caleb felt the energy pulsing through him. Maybe it was madness. Maybe it was desperation. But this battle wasn't over yet. Mundes' greatsword swung through the air with the force of a storm, colliding against Caleb's blade in a deafening clash of steel. The sheer impact sent ice and dust flying across the ruins. Every strike was relentless. Every blow threatened to shatter Caleb's bones. But Caleb stood his ground. The sigil on his hand burned cold, an unfamiliar power surging through his veins. It was then that a voice whispered within him, a name buried in his soul, waiting to be called. A smirk tugged at his lips as he stared down the Revenant King.
Are you sure about that? Caleb said, his confidence unwavering.
Mundes hesitated for a brief second, sensing a shift in the battlefield. Then, a surge of frost exploded outward from Caleb's body. The ruins trembled as the ground froze solid, and a gust of frigid air rushed past them. The very air crackled with new power. Suddenly, a shimmering blue portal formed behind Caleb, the sigil on his palm flaring with light. From the icy mist, two colossal warriors emerged. Frost Knights. Their armor, thick and plated, shone with an ethereal blue glow, frost clinging to their massive frames. Each one wielded a massive greatsword, glowing with an eerie ice-blue hue. Their eyes, hidden beneath their helmets, burned with an ancient, silent fury. Caleb's chest heaved as he took in the sight before him. His new unit, his Frost Knight.
Koga's eyes widened. So you've finally awakened another.
Will, still catching his breath, grinned. Damn, that's badass.
Caleb gripped his blade, stepping forward. Oleg.
The taller of the two Frost Knights turned to him, waiting for his command.
Let's finish this.
The battle erupted once more.
Lancelot appeared beside Caleb, his blade gleaming in the dim light. Apologies for being late.
Caleb smirked, keeping his eyes on Mundes. You're just in time.
With a powerful battle cry, Caleb, Lancelot, and the two Frost Knights charged forward.
Mundes laughed, a sound full of exhilaration rather than malice. His undead heart burned with excitement. At last, a true battle.
Blades clashed, ice cracked, and the ruins trembled under the might of the warriors. Lancelot moved with grace and precision, his sword dancing through the air as he parried and countered Mundes's brutal swings. Caleb fought with newfound power, his strikes stronger, faster, colder. The Frost Knights moved in tandem, their massive swords colliding against Mundes's dark armor. Every strike sent waves of ice and mist rippling through the battlefield. But Mundes was far from finished. With a single mighty swing, he sent one Frost Knight crashing into a ruined pillar, the force shattering stone. The knight rose immediately, unfazed, frost mending his battered armor.
Mundes's laughter grew louder. Yes. Show me your strength, warrior. Let us test the limits of your soul.
He raised his cursed greatsword, dark energy coiling around it. The battlefield shook as he brought it down. Caleb met him head-on. Their blades collided in a blinding explosion of ice and shadow, sending shockwaves through the ruined temple. This fight was far from over.